She was 8 months pregnant with twins and completely alone. James was supposed to be home that evening, but he never came back. Not that night, not the next day, not for 17 days. Elena sat in their beautiful house, swollen with 2 babies, staring at her phone waiting for a call, a text. Anything that would explain why her husband of 8 years had vanished without a trace. Dr. James Mitchell was one of the most respected cardiovascular surgeons in the entire state. He made 6 figures a year. He had everything a man could want: a successful career, a beautiful wife, a luxurious home, and 2 babies on the way. But on a cold December evening, he walked away from it all and never looked back. Elena discovered his betrayal when she found the letter on their kitchen counter. Not an email, not a phone call, but a handwritten letter like they were still living in some previous century. The letter said he couldn't handle the responsibility. He said fatherhood terrified him. He said he needed to find himself. He said he was sorry, but he was leaving. He was going to disappear into his work and pretend none of this existed. Elena read those words over and over, unable to comprehend how the man she loved, the man who had promised to be there for her through everything, could abandon her in the most vulnerable moment of her life. She was carrying his children, his twins, and he was running away like a coward. She called his office, but he had quit. She called his friends, but nobody knew where he was. She went to the police, but they said an adult had the right to leave. There was nothing illegal about abandonment if there were no custody agreements yet. Elena's parents wanted to help, but they lived 3 states away. They wanted her to move back with them, but Elena refused. This was her home. These were her babies. She wasn't going to run away too. But as the days passed and the pregnancy became more difficult, Elena realized she was in serious danger. She developed gestational diabetes. Her blood pressure soared. The doctors warned her that carrying twins alone, without support, without the stress relief of having a partner, was putting her health at critical risk. She went to every appointment alone. She prepared the nursery alone. She bought everything for the babies alone. She did it all while her husband was somewhere out there, living his life as if his family didn't exist. On day 17, Elena went into premature labor. She was only 34 weeks along. The twins weren't fully developed. She was terrified as she drove herself to the hospital, alone, in active labor, wondering if she was going to lose her babies because their father couldn't handle being a man. She screamed as she pulled into the emergency room parking lot. She screamed as the nurses rushed her inside. She screamed through the pain and the fear and the crushing betrayal of being completely and utterly alone. The emergency cesarean section was performed at midnight. 2 beautiful babies were born, a boy and a girl, both tiny, both struggling to breathe on their own. They were rushed to the neonatal intensive care unit, while Elena recovered, drugged and exhausted and heartbroken. When she woke up hours later and asked to see her babies, the nurse told her they were in critical condition. The boy had underdeveloped lungs. The girl had a heart murmur. Both babies were fighting for their lives, and their father was nowhere to be found. Elena tried to contact James at every number she had. She left messages, begging him to come to the hospital. She told him their babies were dying. She told him she needed him. But James never responded. He didn't answer. He didn't care. Or so she thought. But what Elena didn't know was that James was about to receive a visit that would change everything. A visit from a man he had never met before. A man with more money than James could imagine. A man who knew secrets about James that would shake his entire world. This mysterious stranger walked into James's apartment late one night and said something that made James's blood run cold. "I know what you did, Dr. Mitchell, and I know about your family. Your wife just had twins." James's face went pale. "How do you know that? Who are you?" The man smiled coldly. "I'm someone who's been watching you, James. Someone who knows everything about your life. And I'm here to make you an offer you absolutely cannot refuse." James felt his stomach drop. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't random. This man knew things nobody should know. And he was about to reveal information that would prove James's abandonment was connected to something far darker and more sinister than anyone could have imagined. If you're as shocked as James right now, please hit that like button immediately and subscribe to this channel. Because the next episode will completely shatter everything you think you understand about this story. Don't stop watching, because the twist is absolutely devastating. The mysterious man introduced himself as Mr. Alexander Crane, a billionaire investor and philanthropist. He explained that he had been following James's medical career for years. He explained that he knew James had turned down his marriage proposal. He explained that he knew James had chosen Elena instead. And then Mr. Crane revealed something that made James question his entire understanding of reality. "Your wife Elena worked for my company 5 years ago," Mr. Crane said calmly. "She was my personal assistant. She was brilliant, beautiful, and I asked her to marry me. She declined. She said she was in love with someone else. She said that someone was you." James's head was spinning. He didn't know Elena had ever worked for Crane. She had never mentioned it. They had met at a medical conference, or so he thought, or at least that's what Elena had told him. Mr. Crane continued, "When Elena chose you over me, I was devastated. But I realized something important. I realized that I couldn't force her to love me, so I let her go. I thought that was the end of it. But then I found out she was pregnant with your twins." James interrupted. "Why are you telling me this? What do you want from me?" Mr. Crane's expression hardened. "I want to give your family what you obviously cannot give them. I want to help them. I want to be there for Elena and your babies in ways you have failed to be." James felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you proposing?" Mr. Crane smiled, and it was the coldest smile James had ever seen. "I've already had my lawyers draw up papers. I'm going to support your wife and your children financially. I'm going to ensure they have everything they need. In exchange, I want visitation rights with your children. I want to be in their lives. I want them to know who really cared about them when their father abandoned them." James stood up, his protective instincts finally kicking in. "Absolutely not. You're not coming near my family. Elena would never agree to this." But Mr. Crane pulled out his phone and showed James a text conversation. Elena had been texting with him. She had reached out to him when she couldn't reach James. She had asked him for help. She was desperate, and Mr. Crane had responded immediately with money, support, and presence. James felt the ground disappear beneath him. His wife had turned to another man. His wife had accepted help from the very man who had once asked her to marry him. James looked at the text messages and realized something horrifying. Mr. Crane hadn't pursued Elena. Elena had pursued him. She had called him when she was alone and terrified. And he had been there. James drove to the hospital immediately, his mind racing with 1,000 different emotions. When he walked into the NICU where his premature twins were fighting for their lives, he saw Elena sitting beside the incubators, and she wasn't alone. Mr. Crane was standing beside her, his hand on her shoulder in a gesture of comfort and support. Elena looked up and saw James. Her face showed a complex mixture of emotions: anger, relief, betrayal, and confusion all at once. "James, where have you been? Our babies are dying and you just disappear?" Elena's voice was raw from crying. James approached slowly, his eyes locked on Mr. Crane. "Who is this?" he asked, even though he already knew. Elena's expression hardened. "This is Alexander. He's been helping me. He's been paying for the best neonatal specialists. He's been here every single day while you were gone." Mr. Crane extended his hand to James in a mockingly polite gesture. "Dr. Mitchell, I'm glad you finally decided to show up for your family." James ignored the hand and turned to face Elena directly. "Why didn't you tell me you knew him? Why didn't you tell me you worked for him?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Because it didn't matter. It was before I met you. It was nothing." But Mr. Crane interjected smoothly. "It was something, Elena. You called me because you trusted me. You called me because you knew I would be there for you." James felt jealousy and rage and shame all mixing together in his chest. He looked at his wife, at her vulnerable, pregnant with twins body, at the exhaustion written all over her face, and he realized he had failed her in the most fundamental way. But before he could say anything, a doctor rushed into the NICU with urgent news. "The boy's condition is deteriorating. We need to perform an emergency procedure immediately." The doctor turned to James specifically. "Dr. Mitchell, we need a cardiovascular surgeon. The baby has a critical heart defect that requires immediate intervention. Are you available to assist?" All eyes turned to James. This was his moment. This was his chance to be the father his children needed. But there was a complication. The procedure would take hours. He would have to leave Elena's side during one of the most critical moments of her life. He would have to put his medical expertise above his family's emotional needs. And standing right there, ready to step in and fill that void, was Mr. Crane. James faced an impossible choice. He could stay with Elena and let another surgeon operate on his son, risking his child's life. Or he could go into surgery and perform the procedure himself. But in doing so, he would abandon his wife once again, leaving her alone with Mr. Crane. The choice he made in that moment would determine the entire future of his family. And what James didn't know was that this choice had been orchestrated all along. Mr. Crane had known exactly where James was. Mr. Crane had known exactly when to appear. Mr. Crane had known exactly what would happen at the hospital. Because Mr. Crane wasn't just a random billionaire who wanted to help. He had a reason for being there. A reason that went much deeper than unrequited love, and the truth would destroy everything James thought he understood about the people he loved most. If you're dying to know what happens next, if you're desperate to understand what Mr. Crane's real motives are, please like this video immediately and subscribe to our channel because the next episode will blow your mind with a twist that absolutely nobody sees coming. James made the decision to perform the emergency surgery. He kissed Elena goodbye and promised he would explain everything once the procedure was complete. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and Mr. Crane moved closer to her side. For 8 hours, James operated on his son's tiny heart, working with precision and desperation, fighting to save a life that came from his own body. He repaired the critical defect with skill that impressed even the most experienced surgeons in the operating room. His son survived. His daughter also began to stabilize with proper medication and intensive care. When James emerged from the operating room, exhausted and covered in sweat, he rushed back to the NICU expecting to find Elena waiting for him. But what he found instead would change his entire understanding of who Mr. Crane really was. Elena was asleep in a chair, and Mr. Crane was sitting beside her, not in a romantic way, but in a protective way. But what really caught James's attention was a conversation he overheard between Mr. Crane and one of the hospital administrators. "Thank you for the additional donation to the neonatal ward," the administrator was saying. "Your generosity has allowed us to purchase equipment that will save countless lives." Mr. Crane responded, "I'm just grateful I can help. These children deserve every chance to survive." James listened as Mr. Crane continued talking about his philanthropic efforts. He had donated millions to hospitals across the country. He had funded research into neonatal care and pediatric heart conditions. He had made it his life's mission to help sick children. This wasn't a man trying to manipulate a family. This was a man trying to save lives. James approached Mr. Crane and asked to speak with him privately. They stepped into a quiet hallway, and James said something he never thought he would say. "Thank you. Thank you for being here for my wife and my children when I wasn't." Mr. Crane studied James for a long moment. "I'm not here because of Elena, Dr. Mitchell. I'm here because of your daughter." James's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" Mr. Crane took a deep breath. 5 years ago, Elena worked for me, yes. But there's something she never told you. Something she was ashamed of. She had a daughter." James felt the world tilt. "What?" Mr. Crane continued calmly. "Elena gave birth to a daughter when she was 22 years old. She was unmarried, she was alone, and she made the incredibly difficult decision to put the baby up for adoption. That baby was my daughter. She was born without a father. She was abandoned by her biological mother, and I adopted her and raised her as my own." James's mind was reeling. Elena had a daughter he didn't know about? Elena had hidden this from him? But Mr. Crane wasn't finished. "That daughter is now 27 years old. She's a pediatrician, and she was in that operating room with you today, assisting with your son's heart surgery. She was fighting to save your child's life. Because saving children's lives is what she does. It's what she's passionate about. And it's because she was abandoned as an infant that she dedicated her life to making sure no other child suffers." James sank into a chair, trying to process this information. "Why are you telling me this now?" Mr. Crane sat down beside him. "Because your daughter, today, your newborn, she's going to face challenges. She has a heart murmur. It might require surgery later in her life. And I want you to know that there are people in this world who will fight for her. Not because they're trying to steal her from you, but because they understand what it means to be abandoned, and they won't let it happen to another child." James looked at Mr. Crane with new eyes. This wasn't a villain. This was a man who had been shaped by loss and had transformed that loss into purpose. James stood up slowly. "I need to talk to Elena. I need to understand why she kept this from me." Mr. Crane nodded. "She kept it from you because she was afraid you would judge her. She was afraid you would see her differently. She was afraid you would leave her. And then you did leave her, and she realized that the secret she was keeping all along was the secret that had protected her heart from the one person it needed protection from the most." James went back to Elena's side. She was still asleep. He looked at her with completely different understanding. He thought about the pain she had been carrying alone, the weight of a secret she had never shared, the fear that had driven her to call another man for help, and James realized something profound. His abandonment hadn't been about his fear of fatherhood. It had been about his own inability to be present for the people he loved. It had been about his own emotional immaturity, and while he couldn't undo that abandonment, he could commit to never doing it again. Elena woke up to James holding her hand. She saw something different in his expression. She saw understanding. She saw acceptance. She saw love that wasn't conditional on perfection or secrets. "I know," James said simply. "About your daughter. About everything." Elena's face crumpled. She thought this was the moment he would leave her. But instead, James pulled her close and whispered, "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you when you needed me. But I'm here now, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel abandoned again." But just as this moment of reconciliation and understanding was unfolding, a nurse rushed into the room with shocking news that would send everything spiraling once more. "Dr. Mitchell, we need you immediately. Your son's condition has reversed. He's having a cardiac episode. We need you back in surgery right now." James's face went pale. His son, the child he had just saved, was dying again, and the only person who could save him was the man standing in the corner of the room, the man who had already proven he was a better doctor, a better support system, and in many ways, a better father than James had been. If you're as devastated as James right now, please hit that like button and subscribe, because the final episode will reveal whether his son survives and what happens when James finally understands the true meaning of being a father and a husband. James rushed back into the operating room, but this time he wasn't alone. Mr. Crane's daughter, Dr. Sarah Crane, was there beside him. She was the pediatric cardiac surgeon who had assisted on the first procedure. She was brilliant, compassionate, and completely dedicated to saving James's son's life. As they operated together, James realized something humbling. Dr. Sarah Crane was better at her job than he was. She had more experience with pediatric cases. She had a gentler touch. She moved with a grace and confidence that came from years of saving children's lives. James watched her work, and he felt his ego crumble. He had spent his entire career thinking he was the best at what he did. But standing beside this woman who had been abandoned as an infant, who had transformed that abandonment into fuel for her passion, James realized he had been measuring himself against the wrong standards. Together, they saved James's son's life. When they emerged from the operating room 8 hours later, they were both exhausted but victorious. James turned to Dr. Sarah Crane and said something that humbled him completely. "Thank you. Thank you for being a better surgeon than I am. Thank you for saving my son's life." Dr. Sarah Crane looked at him with kind but firm eyes. "You're a good surgeon, Dr. Mitchell, but being a good surgeon isn't the same as being a good father or a good husband. Those are things you're going to have to learn." James nodded. "I know." Over the next 3 months, as James's newborn twins recovered and grew stronger, something shifted in their lives. James didn't just go back to Elena. He transformed himself. He went to therapy to understand why he had run away. He discovered that his own father had abandoned him when he was a child. He realized he had been perpetuating a cycle of abandonment because he thought it was inevitable. He thought all men eventually left, but through therapy and through watching Mr. Crane be present for his adopted daughter every single day, James began to understand that abandonment wasn't inevitable. Presence was a choice. Love was a choice. Commitment was a choice. James took a leave of absence from his surgical practice. He spent time with Elena and the babies. He learned about Elena's daughter, about the pain she had endured, about the strength it had taken for her to keep that secret. And most importantly, James and Elena made a commitment to never keep secrets from each other again. They attended family therapy together. They rebuilt their marriage on a foundation of honesty and vulnerability. And they invited Mr. Crane and Dr. Sarah Crane into their lives, not as threats, but as family. Mr. Crane's motivation for appearing in their lives wasn't about winning Elena's heart. It was about ensuring that a child who had been abandoned would never have to see another child suffer the same fate. It was about breaking cycles of abandonment and creating legacies of love and presence. 6 months after the twins were born, James organized a family gathering. He invited Mr. Crane, Dr. Sarah Crane, Elena, the babies, and even Elena's now adult daughter, who had been adopted by Mr. Crane. They sat together around a table, and James stood up to make a speech. I came into fatherhood believing I was supposed to have all the answers. I believed I was supposed to be strong enough to handle everything alone. I believed that asking for help was a sign of weakness. I was wrong about all of it. James looked at each person in the room. I abandoned my wife when she needed me most. And while I can't undo that, I can spend the rest of my life making sure she never feels abandoned again. I can be present. I can be honest. I can be vulnerable. And I can accept help from people who love us. He turned to Mr. Crane and Dr. Sarah Crane. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Thank you for being there when I couldn't be. Thank you for helping me become a better man. Mr. Crane smiled warmly. Your family is whole now, James, not because it's perfect, but because you've all committed to fighting for each other, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. James's twins grew up in a household filled with love and presence. They had their biological father, they had their biological mother, and they had Mr. Crane and Dr. Sarah Crane as extended family members who loved them deeply. James never abandoned his family again. He never took his presence for granted. And every single day, he woke up grateful that he had been given a second chance. The true twist of this entire story wasn't the appearance of a mysterious rich man. The twist was that sometimes the people who save us aren't trying to take anything from us. They're trying to break cycles. They're trying to heal wounds. They're trying to show us that love doesn't have to be complicated or manipulative. Love can simply be about showing up. Love can simply be about presence. Love can simply be about choosing the people you care about every single day. And sometimes, the greatest gift we can receive is a stranger who reminds us that we're capable of becoming better versions of ourselves. If this story moved you, if it made you cry, if it made you think about your own relationships and your own capacity for presence and commitment, please hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel for more incredible stories that will touch your heart and transform your perspective on love and family. Share this video with someone you care about, because we all need reminders that abandonment doesn't have to be the end of the story. We all deserve second chances. We all deserve people in our lives who show up for us, and we all have the power to choose presence over fear. Thank you so much for watching this entire journey with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode. We'll see you very soon with more stories that will absolutely devastate you in the best possible way.